Welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where the inner warrior shines in their light. Today I have Kelly Montgomery. Kelly is owner of Peace Pad Wellness. She's the founder of Wondrous Woman Rising. She's also a writer and an energy healer. So, Kelly, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, busy day, to join me today. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
We worked a long time to get you here today, so I'm really
We
looking
did.
forward to it. Yeah, it's been a minute trying to reschedule and schedule, and as the audience can see, you're in your car because you're rushing out of work and your apartment's
Yeah.
got construction. So we're just going to make it work the best we can. So, you grew up in Arkansas?
I I was born there. So
Okay.
my family is actually from Germany and Denmark.
Oh,
And they came over here before I was born. And then I was born in Pulaski County or Little Rock, Arkansas. And then I moved here to Long Beach, Washington, primarily when I was 6 years old.
okay. So what was
Mhm.
it like? Long Beach, is that rural Washington? What's
It's
that mean?
very rural. Yeah, it's like so Long Beach is the tiniest two stoplight town. And then 15 minutes north, we have Ocean Park, and that's just a one stoplight town. And it's just like a string, it's a peninsula that you have to turn around to get off of. And it's just a string of little one to two stoplight towns. And it's kind of cute, but I do miss the city sometimes.
What was it like growing up in such a small area?
It was um it was the best of both worlds because I mean, after visiting the East Coast as many times as I have, I come back here and it's very peaceful and quaint, whereas the city isn't. And when I was a teenager, it was too quiet, right? So I was into a lot of like sneaking out of my parents' house and going to parties, and I was just not a good kid. And it was chaotic growing up here, but I think now that I'm older, I have really found the peace in it, and it's been great.
So, we talked off camera, you're the owner of the Peace Pad Wellness. You do massage. You're also an energy healer into Reiki and things like that. How does
Mhm.
someone from such a small community dive into such a universal um, calling like energy work?
Well, it definitely picked me. I'll start there. Um, I got into massage by chance, and that led into energy healing. Um, My goodness. Yeah. So I saw this gal's post online one year, and I hated my job. I hated my life. Like, and I just saw her post. She was like looking for massage interns. And I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. Why not? I had never been massaged a day in my life. And so I decided to go to this workshop. And as soon as he laid his hands on me, I had the biggest epiphany. And I was like, oh my God, I've been wanting all these years to help people. And I feel like I finally just learned how I can. And so I really honed in on my craft. After I graduated, I commuted from Ocean Park, Washington to Vancouver, Washington, which is 2.5 hours each way. And I did that with my son when he was a baby. And he actually sat in class with me a lot of the time. I would take tests with him on my hip. And it ended up being, up to now, the greatest choice that I ever made because this is genuinely what I was made to do. Like every time I lay my hands on somebody, I can feel what they feel. I can feel the energy flowing through their body. I can feel their pulse. I can feel like the warmth of their aura and their muscles. It's just it's such a surreal career. It's amazing to be able to tap into something like that. And yeah.
Prior to you actually getting your first massage, did you always feel like a knowing or a calling? Um, I know my wife is energy worker as well, and she's known her entire life, even without being able to label it or know what it was. And then when she finally tapped into it, it was just like this aha moment. But could you feel something surging like that most of your life?
Definitely. Yeah. I always noticed when I was a little girl that I was much different than my peers and my family. I could see like colors around people. I could see things, um, like spirits and stuff like that. I could tap into my energy a lot easier than most. And I just had a deeper intuitive understanding of energy and people and what was around me and who was around me. And yeah, I think I've really known since I was about probably 4 or 5.
So that's not something that most children understand, and they certainly don't express it because most adults are going to either shut them down really quickly or send them off to like the convent.
Mm, exactly, yeah.
So,
And
how did
it
you handle it?
handle
The knowing, the understanding, the feeling.
I was as a child I was very much reprimanded. As I grew older, I started to realize that there were forces at work trying to keep me from that path, and I sank all the ships that were keeping me from that path. As a kid, you don't really have much of a say because your parents are like, "Oh, sit down, shut up, stop talking like that. That's not true. You're crazy. Maybe we should get you tested. Um, maybe you need to go to a psych ward, stuff like that." But then as you tap into it as an adult, it becomes so ethereal. And honestly, it's such a rewarding gift. But I mean, I didn't deal with it as a kid, but I deal with it now, and
So,
it's the best.
how old were you when you finally stepped into your gift?
Fully,
Yeah.
probably about 25, I would say, because that was a really transitional point in my life, being that a doctor had told me that I wasn't even supposed to make it to 25. Um, due to the 3 eating disorders that I had overcome in the past, which I'm almost 10 years sober from that, which feels great. Uh, but 25, my 25th birthday, I woke up and I decided I was going to go all in on me and really allow myself to open up to my femininity and my gifts and my spirituality, my intuition.
So you mentioned your eating disorders, and it's the first time I've heard someone refer to it as almost a sobriety from, you know.
Mm.
May I ask what created or caused the issues?
I had a pretty rough childhood. I went through, my mom was in and out of relationships. My biological father was an abusive drug addict who we eventually got away from, thankfully, which led into another abusive situation um, with my first stepdad, and that ended up in like molestation and stuff like that, which ended up in foster care for a couple of days. And that all led us to here, to Long Beach, because we needed a safe space. So we moved here to be closer to my oma and my opa. And I honestly, I wouldn't look back. But it generated all of that stress and anxiety and trauma, generated these feelings of unworthiness and suppression and self-hatred and need to be in control. And that was my way of being in control, right? So I suffered from about 11 years old. I started when I was about 11, and I ended when I was almost 18 with those. And I had bulimia, anorexia, and I was overexerting myself in exercise as well, which is also an eating disorder.
Mm.
And people don't know that. But I struggled with those very, very aggressively. And it landed me in the hospital, which was another transitional period in my life, which I am very grateful for.
You're grateful for the hospital?
I'm grateful for that doctor that had the cojones to look me in the face and say, "Hey, I can tell you're not a bullshitter, so I'm just going to give it to you straight." And then he gave it to me straight. And I swallowed my pride and I walked out of that door, and a year later I was clean.
That's some pretty good intestinal fortitude, especially if
Yeah.
you're factoring in three, situations, because one's hard enough to get over, three is a lot. What kind of support did you have around you to help you, or was it all just Kelly?
It was all just me, really. I wish I would have had support at the time. I feel like I have the most support now than I ever have in my entire life, because I decided to stand up and start saying no to things that felt really crappy and yes to things that felt really good. And I never had that option before. But it was just me overcoming all of these monsters that I felt were inside of me.
That takes extreme courage. It takes extreme self-awareness, um, because addiction of any kind is hard enough, especially if you don't have support. But to have the awareness and the intestinal fortitude to draw your own line in the sand, hit your
Mm,
own personal rock bottom, and say no more. That takes an individual, with extreme, um, self-awareness, like I said. But you don't. My background's in psychology, so I
mm.
always think about the brain, and we don't help ourselves unless we think there's a problem with ourselves.
Yeah,
So there
yeah,
has to be something that just says enough.
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I feel like I think the same way, because I am such a geek when it comes to the brain and the body. And so I can relate to that.
So after that doctor, told you what's what, and you walked out and said enough, what type of methods or what type of programs or what type of tools did you use to move yourself forward?
Well, I'll tell you, to this current day, I still struggle with things like body dysmorphia and how I see myself in the mirror. Because when you go from a size 4, super skinny thin but not healthy, to being a mom of 3 and a little bit thicker than you normally are, you know, it's hard. But I did use, when I was just coming out of it, it was just pure mentality. Um, Restricting myself from doing something that could hurt me. Because I was like, okay, well, what would my future kids want their mom to do? This was before I had my kids. And what would my future husband want me to do? What would my future self want me to do? What do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And putting those thoughts into my head gave me the drive to move forward without continuing to self harm in that way. Fast forward, when I was 25 is when I started deep diving into things like EMDR, meditation, um, hypnosis, and mental reprogramming all together, because I decided that's not going to be my story. I'm not going to be the victim at all with anything in my entire life. Like this is not going to happen. So I drew a point A to point B, and I was like, here I am at point A, sad and pathetic. And then here I am at point B, facing all my fears and winning in life. Period. Like, and there's no point C because that's B, right? That's where I'm going, and that's where I am now.
That again is incredible to have that kind of mentality about it, because that's a drive that comes from somewhere other than ourselves at times,
Mm,
and to dig deep enough to instill it. It must really help being a parent, because you're gifting your children the best version of you and allowing them to be the best version of them, because you understand the repression that you went through.
absolutely. And it's even better being a parent because your children are your mirror, right? So like whatever you're lacking in, they're gonna show that to you. Like if you're not communicating properly, 10 out of 10, your kid's not gonna be communicating properly. If you are depressed, 10 out of 10, your kid's gonna be sad and not gonna want to do anything and be lethargic. Like they are your mirror. And I have this thing where I allow my kids to tell me, hey, you hurt my feelings. Hey, I didn't like this. Hey, please don't touch me right now. I'm not feeling it. I don't want to hug and a kiss right now. Thanks, mom. I allow my kids to be kids with their own boundaries that I never had. And that's massive, honestly, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's I wish more parents had the fortitude to allow children to be children, not only to be children, but be the children that they are meant to be. Too
Yeah.
many times, parents often try to mold their children into who they are or wish they were, and never
Mm.
could be. And they live vicariously through that child, or make them a duplicate of themselves, and they're not. They come here with their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own journey, their own path,
Right.
and it
Right.
gets squashed. You want to be an artist, you want to be a healer, you want to be an astronomer. No, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be whatever, a cop.
Right.
So they squash what the children already intuitively feels, and try to mold it into something that they're not. So good for
Yeah.
you for, changing, breaking patterns, breaking generational trauma, and moving, onto that. When you step into your gift and your power, it is natural for most people to then want to do it to help others do it. Is that how the Peace Pad Wellness came to be?
Absolutely. So I was in school about 8 years ago for massage, and the name has changed like a bajillion times. I think like 4 or 5 times. And then I finally came up with Peace Pad, and I was like, oh, yeah, that actually has kind of a ring to it. And, I kind of envisioned people walking by and saying, oh, look, it's Peace Pad, which actually came to fruition this year. And yeah, I always knew that I wanted to do something big in the wellness industry, and it starts here. So Peace Pad is definitely that, yes.
And then how did you become a writer? Because you're a co-author, or at least on your bio you are.
Yeah, so I co-authored 2 books, and then I personally authored 1 book, and I'm actually working on another book, a personal book that I'm very excited about, which I haven't posted any of the deets yet because I'm actually still working on it. Like I'm still working on the outline and stuff like that, but it's coming. Um, I became a writer. I've always loved reading, and I just always knew like that I wanted to share my story someday. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. And then eventually, a few years ago, it landed in my lap. And I was like, yeah, now's the time. And I ended up conquering that time, and it just kind of happened.
And well, I don't know that it kind of happened. You you manifested some of it, and you had a desire for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Um, so what's the essence of your book that you're wanting to bring forth to the world through those pages?
This new book that I'm bringing in is going to be very geared towards the unrealistic timelines of what it really takes to heal, like do the inner work, right?
Mhm.
And how to break that stigma and implement your own timeline, right? Like your own ways of healing, your own your own agenda. Like you don't have to be under society's timeline for these things. Like it's your timeline, it's your journey. You don't have to have a standard. There is no perfect time frame. We're all healing from something that's effed up, you know?
Mhm.
So that's the essence of it. And I want people to stand in that power knowing that they don't have to have the anxiety behind all of these societal norms and standards and timelines.
And Wondrous Woman Rising, what is the essence of that?
So Wondrous Woman Rising, it's more just like my speaking. So when I travel to speak on stages, more so on the East Coast, I just kind of go by that. But I usually just go by Kelly Montgomery. But that is eventually it's going to be a really powerful women's retreat type of gathering. I just haven't got around to that part quite yet. I'm trying to focus on Peace Pad at the moment.
So when you're on stage and you're speaking, what is your target audience that you're trying to reach, and what is the essence of your message? What are you trying to convey to your audience?
You know, last year I would have said I'm trying to reach women and young girls, but I think I'm really just trying to reach everyone's inner child because of what I went through, like the the atrocious things that I have personally witnessed in my lifetime to this point. Um, not knowing who I was as a kid, being punished for being myself and reprimanded and hated overall, like never being shown love and having to come out of that darkness by myself, only wishing I had someone to reach down and help me up. I feel that when I am speaking to an audience, I am speaking to the little girl or the little boy, right, that is inside of them. And I'm saying it's okay to be yourself. You're safe here. It's okay for you to let go of this trauma that you're holding. It's okay for you to step into the love that you deserve, not only from others, but from yourself. It's okay for you to step into your limelight. It's okay for you to step into your personal growth. You know, you're no longer that little kid. And I think so many people are subconsciously connected to that little kid that's inside of them that it holds them back so much. And so when I speak to an audience, I am speaking to those little kids.
And you're absolutely right. I'm considerably older than you, but I just had my own alchemist journey last year, and it was all about stepping in to heal those childhood traumas that I've never been able to, and I
Mm,
mentioned in my own story, sometimes we say hi to our trauma and we set it aside and we think that's good enough, but we never really address it deep enough to heal from it. And so
right,
for the first time in 58 years, I was able to heal that childhood trauma. So now moving into my 59th and 60th year, I can be the man I was supposed to be way back then.
right.
And if you can reach an audience and give them that safety and that awareness that you may have addressed it, but you got to heal from it. There's a huge difference. And if you can bring that message forward, you're doing society a huge favor because we're all wandering around in this brokenness thinking that we're healed adults and we're dragging all the BS with us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And
So,
that's super highly commendable, and I applaud you for that. That's amazing.
well, I'm glad you were able to do it way younger. Is there someone at the car that you're, uh,
No, no, there's just some folks over here that I'm good.
okay. No, I just want to make sure you're safe because you're in a car and I
Yeah,
just want to make sure you're okay because, you
I'm
know,
okay.
okay. Safety first.
Mm,
Yeah. Um, Quick question, the neck tattoo,
yes.
that's
Yeah.
not your typical place for a young woman to have her tattoos. What's the significance of that one?
So I absolutely love tattoos. So this pattern here is a flower of life, which you can find in all living things and life forms um, throughout the entire universe. And then this is a goddess skull, and I'm very spiritual. So, and this is 111, which is
Hmm.
one of my, and then you see 888 here,
Yep.
which is the
Angel
one of my,
numbers.
yeah, two of my favorite angel numbers. So goddess skull, and then you are art.
Oh,
So I
very
believe
nice.
that everybody's body is an open canvas to create and to express. Um, so this is how I express mine, and I very much love tattoos. I'm a very tattooed individual. Um,
I
yes.
have I have three, but they're not. One's on my arm. You might appreciate this one. Phoenix Rising with the violet flame. So
Oh, nice.
it reminds me of my victory over troubles and spiritual transition. Yeah. So I appreciate actually I named my company Praxis 33 because Praxis is the integration of thought and action, which I want all my clients to
Mm,
do. And then 33 is an angel number for prosperity and success. So
I love that.
yeah.
Yes.
So I can appreciate all of that. And I'm glad that it has special meaning, because
Yeah.
um, sometimes I've seen artwork that is, oh, my friend was, trying to draw a horse and you got a stick figure
Yeah.
on your arm.
Yeah. Man, you'd be surprised by some of the tattoos that I see giving massages. I tell you
What,
what.
what was your first one? What was your first body art?
Um, it's actually on this arm, and it's a few daisies, but I have a whole sleeve covering it, so it's not really there anymore. But and then I have like my collarbones with my kids' birthdays, and yeah, and then I have my hands and my thigh, and yep, I have
Open
so
up.
many more coming.
Got a lot of spare room. It's funny
Yeah,
because I'm back in my day, tattoos were for the bikers or the prisoners. And now it's just like it's harder to find someone without a tattoo than it is to find someone, with a tattoo. So
I
it's
agree. Yeah.
kind of nice that it's come so far. Um, it's no longer taboo, but it is unusual for the neck for, especially young ladies. So I was
Mm.
curious about that one. What is your ultimate goal and what is next for Kelly?
Oh man, I have so many goals. My ultimate goal, like in general,
It's your goal. You tell me. What's point B?
my overall goal is to significantly decrease depression and anxiety, especially within the younger community of our next generations, because we need them. Like we really
Mhm.
need them. We need them
Absolutely.
to step up, and because we're not going to be here forever. Um, I ultimately, man, I want to change the face of wellness, like mentally, spiritually, and physically. I want to bring balance to people's lives in those forms. If does that make sense? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
balancing between mind, body, spirit.
Hmm.
And I want to bring that to a global picture, not just Long Beach. I want to take that global. And between Peace Pad, which I hope to be, or it will be a franchise one day. Um, and then with my book, I'm hoping to get on more stages again this year. I kind of took a little bit of a break to start Peace Pad and really focus on building it. But now I'm ready, I think, to get back on stages and really, really gear every ounce of my energy, not only to, my kids and my home life and building myself, but towards that goal in general.
So I know that, and I commend you for all of that because it is necessary work, and the ripple effect is huge. So thank you for doing that. You are definitely a glowing, beautiful soul who can bring that out. You talk about being able to read auras and all that, and as
Mm,
intuitive as I am, not quite as on the level of my wife, but well enough to know good people when I see them. And this is the first time we've actually met, but I can clearly see the essence of who Kelly is, and it's beautiful and bright, and a lot will be attracted to it. So
thank
glad that
you.
you're stepping into that mission. If you had someone who's listening to this and they said, I can kind of relate to Kelly, um, what would be your one message to help them?
One message to help them. Well,
They see themselves where you are or where you were. They want to get to the next side. What would you tell them?
I think I would say don't give up on yourself, because I think if you can relate to anything that I've been through, it's it feels easier in the moment to just put down everything that you're doing and give up on yourself, because it's what everyone has ever done it to you in your life, right? But if you just don't give up and you just keep pushing, right? If you just take the next step and focus on laying down the next brick and give yourself a chance, then you'll get there.
Did you ever see the movie We Bought a Zoo with Matt Damon?
I don't recall.
It's kind
No.
of based on a true story, but in it, he tells his young daughter they were having a moment, kind of like you were talking about just now, which is why it came to my brain. But he tells her, if you can just have, and I'm paraphrasing and butchering it because I'm not Matt Damon, but um, he says, if you can just have 2 minutes of insane courage, 2 minutes to face your fear, what's on the other side of those 2 minutes is going to be better than you could ever imagine. Just two
Mm,
minutes of insane courage. Step into it. And that's a
yeah,
paraphrased version of what he told her, but that scene and that line has always kind of stayed with me. Face those,
absolutely.
face those fears, and just 2 minutes of courage is all you need to push
Absolutely.
through.
And there's this other movie too that just reminded me that absolutely, I mean, this one movie scene just absolutely inspired me to keep going. And I don't even like sports really. Like I'm not really a sports gal, but there's this one movie scene where this coach is pushing his quarterback so hard to where he puts another player on his back and makes him crawl blindfolded and from the beginning of the football field. And he said, I'm just going to make you go to the halfway mark. And then he pushes all the way to the end zone. He's like, don't give up, don't give up. And he has all this support, right? He has this person really pushing him. So I think another thing is surrounding yourself with those people who will push you, even when you can't see where you're going. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So because if you have those voices, when your voice is dim, if you can have voices that are louder than your, what do you call it? The crappy voice inside your head that always tells you, no, you can't do this. No, you can't
Yeah.
do that. If you have people outside of yourself who are louder than that voice, you will always, always, always hit the end zone. You will always win.
Yeah, I remember that scene. I don't remember the name of the movie, but I definitely remember him having the guy on his back and doing that. And it is a really good analogy because and I say this to my wife all the time. If we talk to others like we talk to ourselves, we'd not have any friends, you know? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you need those, and you have to be careful about who those outside voices are because, the problem in most of what we want to do is that we think that our cheerleaders are going to be those that are closest to us, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Your family's not going to always be your cheerleader. Your friends aren't always going to be your cheerleader. So you have to be careful of who those voices are. And those voices come from unexpected places.
Yep,
You
I
know,
agree.
we were running late when we started this today, and someone that we have a mutual friendship of, popped in and said, "Hey, I hear you're interviewing, one of my all-time favorite people." Right?
Oh,
Like,
Josh.
yeah,
Yeah.
like out of the blue. And I'm like, Kelly? And he's like, yeah, love that girl. So you need people like that who are just going to pop in randomly and say, hey, that's a good soul. And, they have your back, you know?
Man, he's one of my all-time favorite people too. He is literally my best friend. Yeah, he's great.
Well, from 3,000 miles away, he's still sending you love. So,
Yeah. Yay.
um, I want to take a moment, because I know we are kind of running late, but, um, I want I want you to step into the essence of who you were and who you are now.
Mm.
And what were you like in that bulimic world, and how does that translate into who you are now?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm allowed
So
one per interview.
who I was
Yeah.
then was broken and hurt and shamed, not only by others, but by myself. I really shamed myself, and I was someone who didn't know where I was going because I had no direction and I had no one to direct me, you know, not properly, anyways, and definitely not down a road that I ever wanted to go. And now, when I look at myself, I am literally a goddess. Like, holy cow. Like, little Kelly would never have thought, and I think little me would be so proud to be even anywhere near me and like who I am today. Feels really good. Feels
It
great.
it is amazing when we step into our authentic selves and actually start to love ourselves.
Hmm.
When we stop and all of it, and I don't, it always amazes me because I see these pretty girls who are, either models or near model-esque, and you hear them talk and they're still beating themselves up and they're still body shaming themselves, or you hear these, really smart, women or men, and then they, get shamed for being a nerd, and we shame ourselves for every aspect of our life. But
Mm,
when we actually start becoming friends with ourselves and start loving ourselves and start, like, the dialogue in our head becomes easier, and the dialogue with the people around us become easier, right? Did you
yes,
experience that?
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that you saying that brings me back to what I was saying about who you have around you. Because the mind is a very programmable thing. And the more we have people around us who are like, oh, you're ugly, oh, you're this, oh, you're that, you're going to believe that, and then the more you have people around you who are like, wow, you are empowered. You are glowing today. Like, get it, queen, like you're going to think that. And that's what you want.
And the crowd that you were running around with when you were not healthy versus the crowd that you're running with today, did any of those stick with you? And if they did, they would have had to change with you.
No, and that's the thing. That's the thing with growth is that when you burn the ships, sometimes you burn bridges too. And I've come to peace with that. Um, because a lot of those people that I did cut off from that timeline, they're still in the same space, like not only mentally, but physically and emotionally. And I can't, there's no room for stagnancy. There's no room for being held down anymore, because why be held down when you don't have to? Why be held down when there's so much more room for growth than that little tiny bit of the world?
And often we hold ourselves down because we're afraid to lose those that are around us when,
Mm,
um, I can't say for certain, but I could put a little bit of money on it. Guys like Josh wouldn't be in your world if you were still in the other world. You wouldn't
exactly.
have him saying the glowing things about you, and you cannot receive with clenched hands. You have to open up. And guess what happens when you open up? Some things fall away, some
Yep.
things that are supposed to fall away.
Well, that's good. I'm gonna write that down.
Please put it in your
Can't,
next book.
can't receive with clenched hands.
Can't receive with clenched hands,
That's
right?
good.
So I want to ask you the same question I ask all my guests at the end.
Mm.
What does a warrior spirit or having a warrior spirit mean to Kelly Montgomery?
Ooh, a warrior spirit to me is finding balance between the compassion and the warrior, right? The lover and the fighter. So being balanced in between both, having a warrior spirit is about just, being balanced, in my
Absolutely.
opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because and I love that that's your definition as well. It's one of the reasons you probably gravitated towards me wanting to actually speak with you because you have a really good story, a good arc, of what you've been through and where you're going. But warrior spirit, people, they hear warrior and they always think fighter, and it's not. It's about knowing when to be peaceful and knowing when to protect that which is yours, not just go out and start a fight.
Yeah,
There's a difference between a fighter and a warrior, my opinion.
absolutely. 100%. Yeah, there has to be balance, like yin and yang, you can't have the light without the dark, and
Absolutely.
you can't have the balance without the peace, you know. So, yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, we are going to add your links to the bottom of the video so that anyone who wants to reach out to you and connect can. Um, when will your book be out?
Um, that is undecided as of now, but
Okay.
I will let you know.
Well, we'll put the links to your other books and we'll put the
Okay.
links to anyone able to connect with you so that we can make sure that other people of the light can find this light. So, any one last words that you want to impart upon the people listening right now?
No, I'm just so happy to have taken part in this, and I hope that you all have a beautiful day.
Well, I appreciate, even though it was a struggle for us to connect, I'm glad that we got it done. And if down the road you want to come back on and share more, we can open door policy. So,
Absolutely, I would love that. Yeah. Thank you for
well,
having me. This has been
I
great.
appre I appreciate everything, and we will do it the next time.
All right.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye.